It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is a band called Circa with a song called Our Place in the Sun. A pretty cool, very long, progressive number to start things off here. And on the line right now, we have a member of Yes, as well as one of the great producers of our time. We have the legendary Billy Sherwood on the line. And Billy, I'm going to start right off with asking you, man, a very progressive number that we just played there with Our Place in the Sun. Tell me a little bit about your background. Is that where you get your influence from? Is that primarily what you are, what you consider yourself to be? Is a progressive rocker? Is progressive rock what is closest to your heart?
Yeah, that's the genre that I love the most for sure, is progressive rock.
Now, working on this new record, Circa, which is definitely very progressive and one of the more epic. I'll just tell you up front, I'm not the biggest prog rock guy in the world. I mean, I certainly listen to it, but I think I go more toward the heavier, like the Symphony X type stuff. As far as progressive stuff. The thing that really jumps out to me, especially with the first two songs on this record, is they're very big, but they don't feel long. You know what I mean? They're certainly long at 20 minutes and 15 minutes or whatever. But they don't. I don't want to throw Dream Theater under the bus, but I just will because it's how I am. Dream Theater, I sort of lose interest in a lot of times when on their long songs. Yours, it almost seems like it has like kind of a message that takes you from start to finish. Is that even remotely what you do?
I mean, this is how I kind of explain when I'm in that mode, making that kind of music. How I sort of explain what I'm thinking, and I'm trying to sort of create from a production level a music, like a movie for your ears, if you will. So you could put the headphones on and take this journey with what we've created, and as you said, hopefully you're not losing them at any point. And so I'm constantly thinking about like, okay, right here we should take a turn, twist into this, and go here and then go there. And I guess by virtue of doing that, it keeps it kind of interesting as you're listening to it, But along the way, there's some serious, hooks and melodies going on that remind you that, oh yeah, that's this song. You know what I mean? So, it's just sort of a natural thing again.
Sure. Now, do you look at Circa as a project, or as a side project, or as a creative outlet?
No, so, I'm a band guy. I've been in bands forever, and I love being in bands.
Okay.
I have my solo career as well, which is more of a selfish thing because I play everything myself and I don't have to ask anybody if they like it. But,
right.
I love being in bands where you're interacting with other great musicians. And this is actually the 10-year anniversary of Circa. We started it, in 2006. And, it's definitely a band that I'm committed to, and so is Tony. And, like all bands, especially Yes, it's had a bit of a change in the lineup over the years. But
sure.
Anyone who's been involved with the band has put their all into it and their passion, and that's pretty much all I'm looking for when we're forming bands, is that you're into it. So it's very much a band. It's not really a project that because we've made so many albums by now,
right?
CDs, I should say.
Right.
So it's a band.
Sure, cool. Now, does that mean that you'll get to actually tour some of this, or play some select gigs?
That's the tricky part, because my life, has taken a very bizarre turn here, which I never imagined, in a million years, replacing Chris, because
right.
I thought he was going to outlive us all.
Right.
Bless his heart, and when he called me, to ask me to do what he did, it was mind blowing and emotional and a huge honor. And, this guy was a very close friend, and we were bandmates and in several different things. And so I gave him a promise, which, that I would do this. And so now I've made Yes a priority, and Yes is extremely busy.
Right.
What we're doing out there seems to be working. No one was more worried about it than I was, because if it didn't work, it would have been my fault. So, but the fans have been extremely, warm and endearing to this thing. And because of that, we've just been working like mad, and we continue to. I've just got back from Europe, and I'm about to go out for 8 weeks here with Yes in the States. And we've got Japan coming and other things. So point being, wherever there's a window of opportunity, we'd love to take advantage of it, because Circa's great live, and we've done it many times, and we would do it again.
Sure.
But it's just got to find the place in the calendar now. I mean, my life, as of last year, it just took a shift that none of us anticipated.
Right. Now, a little bit about that. Obviously, and tragically, Chris Squires died, and and the story's out there. But for people that don't know the story, he asked you before he passed away to continue on and take his space. That has to be just a monumental amount of pressure on you, not only just to perform well, but now the story's out there, so you're not only doing it for his memory, but his family and all the Yes fans that have been there from the '60s.
Well, it's funny you mention his family, because when we were in London just recently playing Royal Albert Hall, which was a great gig, I met his sister and his brother, and I'd known his brother Tony for a long time, but I didn't. As long as I'd known Chris, he never told me he had a sister. So when I met her, immediately, my heart just broke because, obvious reasons. And she just gave me a huge hug and said Chris would be so proud, and, he loved you and all this stuff. And it really meant a lot to me to hear it from that person. I mean, I hear it from the fans, and they're very sweet, kind, and, but it's different coming from that close of a source to Chris. And, so it seems to be working, and I'm very happy about that, because, as I said before, if it didn't work, it would have all been my fault here at the end. So I think Chris had an idea of what he wanted to do, and it's a testament to his character that how many rock stars would hand the keys to the vehicle to someone else and say keep going. So it's a testament to Chris and also our friendship, which was amazing. So.
Sure. Is it when after he passes, and I'm sure there's meetings and whatnot that happens between you and the Yes guys, and you've been in Yes before, I mean, you've been in and out of Yes, and you've worked with them in production and everything else. When you come back after this kind of an event, does the dynamic change at all between you and the band? Because it sort of is a different, it's sort of a different vibe.
Well, as you mentioned, I've been around this camp for almost, a little bit shy of 30 years, if not 30 years now. And I know them all very well. And so, it was a bit like returning to a family, and I think that, the first day of rehearsal when I got there, everybody was really encouraging and warm and welcoming, and the vibe in the band is fantastic, right now. And it's just an amazing experience to not only have, the support, obviously, of Chris, but to know that everybody in the band, this is their wishes too. And, what can you say? It's a ginormous honor. I mean, this was my favorite band in the world.
Sure.
And, somehow I've ended up in this slot here, which is, again, I never imagined it in a million years. I mean, Chris had to, he was sort of hinting around to it the first call, I really want the band to keep touring, and
right.
And we're going to do this tour with Toto, and I want the band to tour. And I said, well, they're just going to have to wait. I mean, what are they going to do without you? They're just going to tell them to wait, man. And he said, yeah, I guess so. And then he called me a couple of days later. Hey, man. I said, hey. He goes, yeah, I really want the band to tour. I said, we talked about this.
Right.
You just need to tell them to wait, man. You know what I mean? The thought never crossed my mind. And then the third call, he said, so I really want the band to tour. I said, Chris, it's enough already, man. They just tell him to wait. He said, no, we've been talking, and here's what we're thinking. And when he told me that, man, I just lost it. And
yeah.
I had to take a moment to comprehend this all. And of course, I'm going to tell him yes, because he was a very close friend, and
sure.
he knows I love the band, and so there was no way I was going to say no.
Right. No, I mean it's a big thing. It's funny because obviously on the press side of things we just get these press releases here and there, and we just see this and that. And I know for me, I read that story, I was like, wow, that's a lot of really personal stuff to put out there in a press release, Yeah. Well,
the one thing I did tell him, when he finally, came out and asked me, they said, I'll do this for you. You don't even need to ask. I'll do it. I said, but you've got to say something in public so that I don't appear to be some sort of ambulance chaser.
Right.
Because I don't want that at all. And if you guys are truly serious about this, you're going to have to get ahead of this so that it sort of, the fans know what's going on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And again, to his credit, he was, as you just said, you know, some personal stuff, and he came out there and put it on the line. And, you know, but that's who he was.
Sure.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a very unique relationship. I mean, this guy was my hero and my idol, and became my friend and became my bandmate in several things, as I said. And so it's very unique, you know, very bizarre, but I'm going with it.
Yeah, I understand. You know? Well, let me ask you a couple of questions about stuff that I believe is more production oriented for you, and it's really just about people. Because, you know, look, and like I said at the beginning here, looking at your resume, it's literally a who's who of rock in the last, you know, of rock and metal and soft rock and, you know, everything over the last,
yeah.
you know, everything. But it's interesting to me, and I'm just curious, and, you know, I see so many guys on here that are absolute biggest name in the world legends. You know, I see Paul Rodgers on here several times as an example. That guy's as big of a legend as it is. You know, how, and for you, who, you know, you're more of a behind the scenes guy. I mean, you're not, but you're not in the same spotlight as Paul Rodgers. How difficult is it for you to work with somebody like that, like Paul, or, you know, like, I don't know, Lemmy or whatever? Go ahead.
I think once you're in the studio and you meet and you start talking music, you start talking production, you know, any of those barriers that might be there go away.
Okay.
And you start getting on with the task of making the record, or you get fired and booted out of the room because he doesn't like your ideas.
Right.
Fortunately for me, I've never been booted out of the room. And I'm pretty blunt about what I think about music. And, you know, I have no fear to tell someone what I think about music, because the idea is to make something great, you know, and the ideas and communication is key in the studio. And I think that, you know, that artists, you know, appreciate that, because, you know, you don't want a yes man in the studio.
Right.
In terms of, I don't mean a yes man in terms of the band. I mean like a guy who just says, oh no, I love that. Great. Keep going. I love that. Keep going. Because it's not really the way that it's done. So I think that the artists that I work with appreciate that. And, you know, I'm always in awe of these cats that I'm working with. I mean, you mentioned Paul Rodgers. He's just so amazing that, you know, when you do first arrive, you sort of got to get over that initial rush, because I'm a fanboy and, you know, I'm an autograph seeker. You know, I'm kind of a nerd like that.
Right.
So once you get past that and get into the other stuff I was talking about, though, the relationship immediately changes, and you know, I've been blessed that it's always changed for the better, and not only do we make great stuff, but we remain friends, you know.
Sure. Have you encountered bands that have just been like, absolutely not, just turn the knobs and shut up?
Not really, no. Because usually, you know, there's some reason that they're asking me to do it, and they know what I do before I get there. So, you know, they kind of know that this guy's going to have an opinion, and and that's what we're hiring him for, you know.
Right, definitely. Let me ask you about...
Someone has to say the emperor doesn't have any clothes on here, guys.
Right.
You got to fix this.
Right. I hear you, man. Well, let me ask you about one that has been widely controversial, I guess, and it certainly was on our show. That is the remix of the Frequency Unknown record.
Oh dear!
I have to. I just have to know, how does that even happen? I mean, I've seen reports.
Well, you know, I did a lot of albums for Cleopatra Records, and they had that record. And you know, I'm a mixer, engineer, producer guy, and they called and said, would you like to have a remix thing here and maybe put some orchestral stuff on top? And I said, sure, I'll do this. So I did it. Now, you know, for me, it's always easier to make a record from scratch, because you're in control of how you're recording things and the level of how you want things to be in terms of production. In that case, things were already pre-done and subgrouped down and this, that, and, you know, files everywhere. And it was a bit chaotic in terms of its production map that I was looking at. I mean, there were 450 files called audio file 1, audio file 2. You know, I mean, it was insane. So I kind of tried to do the best I could with it, and you know, see if I could, you know, get it done, and I did so. But it was, you know, it's just a project that came at me, and I fear nothing. So, you know,
Sure.
yeah, let's go for this, you know.
And it's interesting. I just did this yesterday because I wanted to revisit it, knowing that I was talking to you.
Yeah,
it's two totally different records. The original to yours are
yeah, with the orchestra on top, it's definitely different. That's for sure.
But it even sounds, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it even sounds like you might have changed the timings or the pace or something on some of the songs. They seem a little more energetic.
No, I just sort of do my thing, and it's amazing what you can do in the studio with, you know, technology these days to give certain aspects of music a different life. And it really comes down to who's mixing it and how they're going to hear it, you know, and it's just one of those things. And I'm drawn to that sort of more energized kind of sound, and you can get there with the right tools, you know. Right. I mean, that said, again, you know, had I recorded the whole thing from scratch, it would be different as well. But in terms of trying to mix what I had, you know, I just tried to give it, as you said, you know, as much energy as possible.
Sure. Well, one record that definitely has a lot of energy in it is this new one from Circa. The record is called Valley of the Windmill. Now, Billy, where can people check this out and find out more about what you're doing and your touring with Yes and et cetera, et cetera?
Well, there's a few outposts out there on the internet. You know, I'm on Facebook, and I use that to communicate with all kinds of people all around the planet. And you know, I love, I'm a people person, so I answer people back when they message me and whatnot. So I'm there at Facebook as Billy Sherwood. And for my solo stuff, as a sort of directory of where to go, you can obviously kind of Google it. You'll find it on Amazon. You know, it's all over the place, and CD Baby and whatnot. But BillySherwood.com is my website. It's a bit under construction right now, but that's the site that I have. And obviously, you know, with Yes, if you go to YesWorld.com, you'll find all the information for the touring. And there's also a couple of cool interviews in there. And there's also at Yes World a quite incredible page when Chris passed away, a sort of eulogy page from various artists who sent messages. And there's some really beautiful things said there by some amazing people. And I recommend stopping on that page for sure.
Excellent. Well, as we said, the new record is the band is called Circa. The record is Valley of the Windmill. It's out now. Billy, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the record. We already played Our Place in the Sun, so what should we end with? And maybe tell us a quick story about it.
I would play Valley of the Windmill, and you know, the story behind that record is I was driving from my house to Arizona to visit Chris and record him for the Citizen record that I'd made.
Okay.
And this was just right before he got sick. And as I was driving there, as you kind of come over this little part of the freeway and you enter this valley into Palm Springs, and there are hundreds of windmills. And some of them are moving and some of them are not moving. And for some reason that just looking at that image, I just got this idea of this one lonely windmill that just, you know, it's the wind is blowing, but it just still can't get going, you know, and sort of used that as an idea for the whole song. And I pretty much wrote the thing in about a 10-mile span. As I was driving past there, I had my phone out, I put it in record, and I just sang these words and this melody, and then I brought it to TK and said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Let's make this the song," you know. So I would play Valley of the Windmill.
All right, well, let's check it out now. This is Circa right here on your Classic Metal Show.